Juliana Redding was like many young, attractive people who moved to Los Angeles, hoping to succeed in modeling or acting despite the odds. Those who succeed often enjoy prosperous and fulfilling careers, but those who don't are either forced to return to their hometowns or keep trying, hoping to get their big break. Juliana was one such aspiring actress who moved from Arizona to Santa Monica, California in 2005. However, her story took a tragic turn with many twists and turns. It's a case that leaves many questioning whether justice was truly served, as the outcome was unexpected. Today, Juliana's family must live with the knowledge that the criminal who took her life may never face the consequences of their heinous actions. Juliana grew up in Tucson, Arizona, where she attended Sal Puente Catholic High School. By all accounts, she had a great childhood and was close to her family. After graduating, she decided to move to California to pursue her dream of becoming a model. By 2008, she was living alone in a bungalow in Santa Monica while studying at Santa Monica College. To make extra money, she worked as a hostess in a restaurant while seeking opportunities in modeling or acting. For a time, Juliana seemed content with her situation, but everything changed on March 16th of that year when her mother, Patricia, couldn't reach her daughter. What is known is that Juliana played a round of golf on March 15th, after which she returned to her bungalow and decided to spend the night in watching TV, specifically Seinfeld reruns. The following evening, Patricia became increasingly concerned when she received a call from Juliana's neighbors, who informed her that they hadn't seen her all day and that her dog was inside the bungalow, but the place seemed deserted. Patricia repeatedly dialed Juliana's number, hoping she would answer, but she never did, nor did she return any of her mother's calls. At first, Patricia thought Juliana might be busy, but when she hadn't received a reply by 6 p.m., she knew something wasn't right. She decided to call the police. The disappearance. Patricia explained the situation to investigators and asked if they could do a welfare check, to which they agreed. Officers traveled to the bungalow and looked around outside, but saw nothing out of place or suspicious. Her car was still parked in the driveway, suggesting she should be home, but the bungalow was silent. However, when they entered the building, they knew something strange had happened. They noticed a candle burning in the bungalow's main entrance and immediately detected the odor of natural gas. They discovered the gas was coming from a stove that had been left on, but the burner wasn't lit, meaning the entire room was essentially a time bomb. Then they made an even more unsettling discovery. After searching the house, they walked into the back bedroom, where they found Juliana. Unfortunately, she was no longer alive. It didn't take detectives long to realize she had been strangled, but it was also obvious that she had put up a fight against her attacker. From all indications, it seemed that a violent struggle had taken place throughout the apartment. This theory was confirmed when it was revealed that Juliana's DNA was present under her own fingernails, suggesting she was trying to remove her attacker's hands from her throat. There were very few clues as to who had ended her life, but one thing was certain. Whoever had entered the apartment had planned to cover their tracks by blowing up the apartment. They had hoped the gas emanating from the stove would react with the lit candle, creating an explosion that would have destroyed much of the evidence at the scene. Fortunately, due to the age of the building, the gas never built up enough to cause an explosion. Investigators began piecing together what they believed happened in the moments leading up to Juliana's death. They believed someone entered the bungalow at around 10 p.m. on the night of March 15th. After gaining entry, they attacked Juliana, and at some point, she suffered head injuries by having it hit against the floor. Since this was a prolonged attack, investigators believed her assailant didn't expect her to put up such a fight, ultimately resorting to strangulation. It was later determined that Juliana attempted to contact emergency services at some point, as her phone records showed that she dialed 911, but the call ended before it could connect. The neighbors who contacted Patricia told officers they had heard the sounds of furniture being moved around and someone screaming at 9:53 the previous night, but hadn't seen anyone suspicious in or around the building. It's a shame they didn't take the situation more seriously. But you can't blame them too much. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and it could have just been a small party or something. Evidence was collected from the scene, including several DNA samples found on the front door, the phone, Juliana's clothing, and her throat. These samples were sent to a lab for analysis, but it would take some time to reveal who had been inside her apartment. In the meantime, investigators interviewed Juliana's family and friends, gathering as many details about her life as possible. When speaking to crime scene experts, Juliana's father suggested they contact a man named John Gilmore, with whom Juliana had an on-again, off-again relationship. He added that he was concerned when he found out they were dating, as Gilmore was known to have a violent temper. This became all the more apparent when Gilmore kicked in her car door on one occasion and forced his way into her apartment. When investigators heard this news, they felt like they finally had the lead they'd been hoping for. They immediately set out to locate John, and it didn't take long before they found their man, the main suspect. When John Gilmore was interviewed, he stated that he had been to Juliana's place that Sunday morning, but got no answer at the door, despite her car being parked in the driveway. He looked through the security gate, but could only see the burning candle, though he never smelled any gas. When asked about the violent incidents, he admitted that he and Juliana had, on occasion, gotten into fights, one of which took place that Saturday night when they argued about his plans for that evening. He had called her to tell her that he was planning on spending some time with his friends, which must have irked her, as she abruptly ended the call. He claimed that she then decided to spend the evening with one of her own friends, and he ended up going to a house party a few miles from her apartment. While there was still some tension between them, they kept texting each other throughout the evening, but at around 10 p.m., she stopped responding to his messages. When he still hadn't received any reply the following morning, he attempted to call her and sent several text messages, but again, got no response. This is when he went to her building, but had no choice but to leave when he couldn't find her. While he was the first suspect, his name was soon cleared thanks to surveillance footage from the night of the attack. Security camera footage showed him visiting a convenience store and a Jack-in-the-Box restaurant. Several people from the house party also confirmed that he was there between 9:45 and 10:15 p.m. His innocence was further confirmed when it was revealed that much of the DNA found in the apartment belonged to a woman, not a man, leaving police with many unanswered questions. They then began the task of speaking to all of the women in her life. There was speculation that someone who knew her might have become jealous of her looks or lifestyle, or that a love triangle was involved. Investigators collected DNA samples from everyone they spoke to, but this led nowhere, as no match was found for the samples taken from her apartment. This is when they discovered another man in the picture, a doctor named Munir. Upon further investigation and questioning, investigators learned that Juliana and Munir met while she was employed at a restaurant in 2007. She must have made quite an impression on him, as he offered her a job as his medical assistant, which she readily accepted. Working as a hostess or waitress in a restaurant obviously doesn't pay very well, at least not considering all the crap you have to deal with from patrons, so she must have jumped at the opportunity to earn a little more money. However, their relationship wouldn't remain merely professional for long. Before too much time had passed, she agreed to move in with Munir, who began showering her with gifts and allowed her to live in his upscale house in Beverly Hills. While this must have been flattering for a while, Juliana soon became concerned about Munir's behavior, feeling as though he was obsessed with her. He told her that he wanted to buy her an expensive car when she turned 21, and even suggested they get married. There was no doubt that she would want for nothing since he was wealthy, but he was known to waste money on jewelry, cars, and women, which she found overwhelming and concerning. It's unclear whether Munir simply got the wrong message from Juliana, or if he was delusional, making things out to be more than they were. Whatever the case, his behavior only grew stranger, and it didn't take Juliana long to realize she needed a way out. The breakup, Juliana eventually realized she needed to end the relationship with Munir, after which she relocated to the bungalow in Santa Monica paid for by her father. The pair parted on good terms, and they even stayed in touch, which is a bit surprising. One of Juliana's friends later revealed that she, Juliana, and Munir traveled to Las Vegas on one occasion to celebrate her friend's birthday. However, all was not as it seemed. Not long before her death, Munir told Juliana that he wanted to start a chain of pharmaceutical businesses across the country and needed her father's help to accomplish this. Munir wanted to get to know her father better, since he was a well-known and highly regarded pharmacist in Arizona. This was no small request. Munir was asking Juliana's father to be his business partner. Juliana did what any daughter would have done. She tried to get her father involved and set up a meeting between him and Munir in early March. During this meeting, Munir tried to impress Juliana's father, but it didn't work, as her father was put off by Munir's aggressive sales tactics and strange, erratic behavior. After thinking it over, he told Munir that he wasn't interested in the business venture. That's when things took a turn for the worse. Investigators learned that Munir was devastated when he learned that Juliana's father had declined the offer. Though he wasn't upset with him, he was upset with Juliana, as he believed she hadn't done enough to convince her father to come on board. He saw her as the reason his business venture failed, which was one of his biggest dreams. A few days later, the two had a conversation, after which she completely cut ties with Munir. She didn't want to speak to him anymore, not because she wanted to hurt him, but because she believed he was becoming irrational and dangerous. After speaking with Juliana's friends and family, the pieces were slowly starting to fall into place. Investigators learned that while Munir was well known and liked by many in Los Angeles, there was another side to him that most people didn't see, a much darker side. He had been charged with sexual assault and rape on multiple occasions and had been accused of arranging assaults on women through acquaintances. Many believed that Munir was an extremely dangerous man, though none of these cases were brought to trial, as the victims either refused to testify or recanted their statements. Investigators knew they needed to interview Munir as quickly as possible, so they traveled to his home, hoping to catch him off guard. However, when they spoke to him, Munir seemed completely unbothered by the situation and claimed that he had nothing to do with Juliana's death. He said he couldn't recall when they last spoke, though it was most likely a few days before her death. However, his relaxed demeanor would soon change when investigators revealed they knew that a woman's DNA was found in Juliana's apartment. Munir immediately knew who it belonged to. While speaking with investigators, Munir revealed that he had hired an aspiring actress and former boxer named Kelly Sue Park as a sort of problem solver for his business ventures. Essentially, she was there to ensure that his business dealings went as planned and to take care of any issues that might have arisen. It didn't take detectives long to wonder whether she was the one who had ended Juliana's life. This theory was supported by the DNA evidence, as Park's DNA was a match for the samples found on Juliana's phone, throat, and clothing. The truth was finally starting to become clear. The arrest Kelly Sue Park was arrested and charged with Juliana's murder, but this is where things get complicated. At the time, she had a solid alibi for where she had been the night of March 15th, which was verified by witnesses. But investigators believed her alibi was flawed and that she could have easily left her home at some point, driven to Santa Monica, and returned without anyone noticing. According to Park, she had never even met Juliana, so she didn't understand why her DNA would have been found in her apartment. However, when detectives checked her phone records, they noticed that her cell phone had pinged a tower just 3 blocks away from Juliana's bungalow on the night of her death. This was the smoking gun they needed, as it clearly showed that she had been lying to the police. Investigators concluded that Park had most likely traveled to Santa Monica, gained entry into Juliana's apartment, and attacked her, leaving the stove on before she left in an attempt to cover her tracks. Investigators later revealed that Park was not acting alone, but that she had been hired by Munir to take Juliana's life. She likely used her skills as a boxer to subdue Juliana, but when she began fighting back, Park took things to the next level and decided that Juliana needed to be silenced permanently. It's believed that Munir paid Park up to $1 million for her services, as he knew that if Juliana and her father weren't going to be with him, they needed to be silenced. However, there's no evidence to support this claim. Police were never able to track down any of the money he allegedly paid her, as it was likely in cash, which is impossible to track without records. The trial after Kelly Sue Park's arrest, she was held without bail while prosecutors prepared for her trial. They gathered as much evidence as possible, but Munir's name was never officially brought up in connection to the murder, as there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute him. As the trial date approached, Park's legal team prepared their defense, which included painting her as an upstanding citizen who would never have committed such a heinous act. They also tried to discredit the evidence against her, claiming that the DNA samples found in Juliana's apartment were inconclusive and that the phone tower pings couldn't conclusively place her at the scene. They also argued that there was no direct evidence linking her to the crime, only circumstantial evidence. The trial began in 2013, and it was a long, drawn-out affair. The prosecution presented their case, showing that Park's DNA was found at the crime scene, that her cell phone had pinged near Juliana's apartment, and that she had a motive to kill Juliana. They also brought in experts to testify about the DNA evidence and the phone tower pings. However, the defense was relentless in their attempts to discredit the evidence, and they were successful in creating doubt in the minds of the jurors. In the end, the jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict. They were deadlocked, and the judge declared a mistrial. This was a devastating blow to Juliana's family, who had hoped for justice. The prosecution decided not to retry Park, and she was released from custody. Munir was never charged in connection with the murder, and he continued to live his life as a free man. Conclusion: the Juliana Redding case is a tragic reminder of the dangers that can come with living in a big city and the lengths some people will go to get what they want. It's also a case that raises questions about the justice system and whether it's truly capable of delivering justice in all cases. Juliana's family continues to mourn her loss, knowing that the person responsible for her death may never be brought to justice. The case remains unsolved, and it's unlikely that anyone will ever be held accountable for Juliana's murder.